Ladies and gentlemen, there are seminal events in your lifetime that you mark before and after going to school, graduating. This event is going to be one of them. You will mark your life in two parts: before this Coaches and Directors Summit 2023 session about academic integration, and everything after. And I would bet, on the whole, on the balance, if you have 3 years left to live, it doesn't matter. This will be the better part of your life. Joining me are two of my absolute favorite people, Chris Postel and Mike Aguilar. Now, I'm not going to tell you too much about them that you don't already know yet, but if you listen closely, I'll drop in 5 facts about each one you didn't even know were out there and may not even be true. Let's throw to the guys right now. Chris, Mike, is that your favorite
Thank you
intro
so
of all
much
time? Only one answer will
for
do.
such a warm welcome. Thank you very much, and to all of our lovely viewers, welcome to the second day
To
of the
both of our
Coaches and
viewers,
Directors
yes.
Summit, presented by EsportsU. This is the second year of our annual summit, in which we present and dive into topics that are important to you, coaches and directors, for the betterment of our community and the shared education and empowerment of all. Joining me today is Mr. Doc Haskell and Mike Aguilar, directors of esports at Boise State and University of Oklahoma. Please take a couple seconds to introduce the two of yourselves, starting with Mike.
I'm
Yeah,
Mike
Mike Aguilar. You can also
Aguilar.
call me.
I'm in charge.
Oh my
I'm
lord!
sorry.
I was debating on doing a blur screen with a Boise State Bronco in the back. But I'm mad I didn't do it. But yeah, Mike Aguilar Moog. I'm the director of esports and co-curricular innovation within the Division of Student Affairs at OU. I've been working on this at OU since the fall of 2016. And now resemble one of the largest single topic organizations on campus at over 3,400 members and over 190 students in development.
And
Go ahead,
what
Doc.
I'll add to that he did not include in that is Oklahoma was one of the first universities to really chase, because of him, esports. But big institutions, big battleships turn slowly. I've known this man for 7 years and have got to witness his fight to where they are now. And I don't think it would have survived at such a big university without someone like him. So let me just say, all those things behind the comma after his name are well earned.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
And Doc, let's hear about you as well, sir.
I just, my job is I get gamers in chairs to compete.
All right. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, you have this finely qualified panel to talk today about our topic: academic integration. How is it happening on campuses in regards to esports? Let's dive into our first series of questions. And to start off our discussion, I want to reference data, because data is king in how we choose to discuss and how we are empowered and educated on topics. Data shows that universities are integrating esports into their academic pipelines with increased frequency, ranging from certificate programs all the way up through baccalaureate and even master's programs. To this end, there are many different possibilities of how schools are integrating. I want to ask two of you, before we talk about your prospective schools, what do you see when you survey the country and look around yourselves? What do you see as most common, and what do you see as most recent?
I'll I'll go ahead and start this. I think the certificate becomes the kind of foundation that we see as a starting point for a lot of academic endeavors in regards to how do we take what we already do as a university and bring esports in a topic that we know students are interested in. And I think that that's both good and bad. And I'll definitely talk about why when we talk about how I'm looking at approaching OU's development more and more. But the certificate becomes that cliche kind of low-hanging fruit opportunity in regards to how do we get something that has an academic opportunity accreditation. And that accreditation component is the part that's the most ridiculed against all of our collegiate peers, because as far as we're concerned, there aren't very many professors or doctorates or subject matter experts within the walls of academia to build, the curriculum, structured program. So that said, on the positive side, the intention is that the first is always the hardest. The people that are starting to do this for the first time or have done it for the first time will always have the most ridicule because it's never been done before. And so you're providing structure, normalization, and a common vernacular of doing these things is going to have some cultural pains and growths. But past that, we are absolutely seeing, minors, majors, undergrads, master's programs even. And pretty soon, I'm pretty sure we'll start seeing a few doctorate, at least tie-ins in regards to curricular alignment of pre-existing structures. But all of it, I think, is movement forward. It's always my only hang up with those things is about the intentionality of it, the marketing of it, and does it actually have the substance based on the faculty that are either adjunct or hired in to teach it.
Yeah, I think that would be
Yeah,
a good
and
segue for
I'll
you, Doc.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, here's what I'll say is, and let me just give you a peek behind the curtain at all institutions, right? All efforts have to be funded by something. They can be funded by external dollars, by appropriated dollars, which is, hey, we're going to give this much every year for this thing because we think it's important. Most rec centers are largely funded on, a slice of the student tuition pie, but everybody else has got to do their work to bring that money in, and those are credit hour returns, basically the amount of money that a department or a unit gets to from each of the credits offered, right? So that's one of the reasons we're seeing a lot of these courses be developed. They believe in esports, but they got to find a way to pay for them. So let's create, as Moog talked about, a certificate. Mostly the way that it depends on the type of university, but big public institutions like ours, honestly, even private institutions, they have to start by getting curriculum by a board or a panel or a collection of individuals. They have to make sense to their own department. And you can start by offering special topics courses, and then you can bundle a few of those special topics courses into a loosely approved certificate. But to get a minor or a major, it has to go all the way to the Board of Education, who has to determine that it has value. So almost all of these certificates, while you may think, oh, golly, why is, Sisters of the Poor University offering a certificate in esports? They just started a team last year and they've never won a game, and their person is a worn out rec person who's becoming this other thing, or is becoming the esports. They don't know anything. That is the path. That is the path that most universities have to take to get curriculum in there and to get money to flow back in. But here's what I would argue is that of those who are sitting here and many of you who are watching, your path into esports expertise is not a straight one. I have a music degree, and then an educational technology master's, and then a doctorate that kind of was starting to loosely be connected with gaming before I'm here. My path is all over the place. Mike's path is not a straight shot into esports, but if you look on the periphery, you see a lot of that stuff. So here's what I would say. What I'm seeing is people developing curriculum the way that they have to develop curriculum on their campus so that they can keep, financial efforts built, like structured, so that they can keep doing what they want to do. It's not because all of these places have expertise, but that's the way it looks, right? It's like, oh, and how can they? Because they have to. That's the way they have to do it.
Right.
It doesn't mean that they won't develop that expertise, but that's the way that universities work, and that's the way that money flows within the universities, unless you've got just a big old, Uncle Moneybags who's just going to come and drop stuff on you.
I really
Hopefully I took us
appreciate
way
both
off
of those
topic.
vantage points. Oh no, you hit it perfectly, because I think it's really important to establish a baseline of when people see one thing, other people see another, and I think that perspective is really important in this conversation more than anything, because this is a polarizing conversation within academic integration. And so at this point, I want to actually go to you, Doc, and I want to ask you,
Okay.
let's get a little granular for a second. What presence at Boise State, which is a Division I public institution, what presence does esports have at Boise State as far as it goes academically? And how does this affect your students? And how does this affect your administration?
So our structure is a little bit unique, says every director everywhere, right? We're a little different. No, everybody's a little different. We are a competitive esports program nestled in the warm bosom of a academic college. And what that means is that our competitive team is part of the College of Innovation and Design. There's a reasonable chance within the next year we will be acquired by athletics and become part of the athletics program, but we're not there yet. We follow all of their other rules. We, like football and basketball, do not offer courses. We're a platform that other units and colleges and departments can build coursework on and around, and we're the lab for that. So if you can imagine it this way, if you're a football team, you don't offer courses um, in athletic training, but you allow the athletic training department full access and volunteer time in your program. We do that with communications, we do that with education, we do that with a number of other budding ones, but we don't offer the courses ourselves. We are simply the platform, the classroom, if you will, that other departments can offer. Did that answer your question, Chris?
It did a
You're
little
still
bit. I
stuck
think
on
I
nestled
understand
in the
more.
bosom, aren't you? Yeah.
I not in the slightest. I understand now how your departments are interfacing with your program, but from a student perspective, what do the students see?
So the
How do the
students
students see
treat it like,
academics
yeah, the
within your
students
program?
treat it treat the competitive effort like any other athletic team, and are held to high, um, not crippling, I don't care what you read on Twitter, but high academic standards, so that they can travel and maintain their scholarships and things like that. We have an associate or assistant dean in our college who manages the standard grade checkups, and I'm always interfacing with students to do that, but they don't take courses from us for anything.
Gotcha. Understood. Mike, I'm going to turn over to you now. And I know that you're in building phase right now at the moment, but you're building at the speed of light as far as it goes in the world of higher education. So, in terms of academics at the University of Oklahoma, what presence does esports have? And same question to you that I gave to Doc. How does this or will affect the students, and how does this or will affect different academic departments?
So I actually like Doc's intro on this in regards to building a platform for departments to integrate in. And in fact, I'm now stealing something from you, Doc, for the first time. So this,
Not the first time.
yeah, what? But the point is that like when we talked or approached curriculum in the context of do we want to offer the traditional kind of canon in regards to undergrad, minors, majors, masters, and so forth, then moving that needle forward is basically an act of Congress. Board of Regents approval, State Board of Education approvals is a very long, drawn out process. So the strategy from the very beginning was to focus on path to industry by creating an opportunity where students can treat the OU esports program as their lab for those classes. So if you're in business, so if you're in marketing, international business, well, then you're going to be in our community pillar and our leadership pillars. If you're going to be in creative media production, journalism, professional writing, sports broadcasting, anything like that, you're in our production pillars or streaming entertainment pillars. If you are interested in competition, at least from the context of structure and development, that's also in the College of Business, Sports Team Management, Sports Business degrees. So in that same vein, what we're doing is 90, I wouldn't say 90, but a big chunk, more than 50% of the curriculum that they're learning, the ethics standards, the due processes, the understandings of compliance, the need for governance and policy, understanding how to read analytics and fabricating a narrative based on reporting is true in the curriculum as is. It does not need any renovation. You could, for all intents and purposes, at least slap esports in front of some of those classes, but you don't necessarily have to, aka sidestep that entire act of Congress process. So when students come for tours and they come for kind of understanding, well, especially the parental units where they're like, well, how does this plug into what he wants to do? Well, that's obviously that's one of the kind of the director's kind of magic in regards to finding those connective tissue and sinew of what they're doing on a daily basis, providing structure, and then end product of what that student young adult will become. And that can range from anything from aerospace engineer and the soft skills development, the more baseline kind of core benefits of being involved in a development with camaraderie and synergistic intention. But then on the other side, those that actually have degree alignments that already are components of what we do in esports from an operational standpoint or an execution component, those degrees are already pretty powerful as is, with the benefit of not being esports branded and siloing them into an industry that is going to struggle to hire anybody with an esports degree. At least currently, that's still kind of a struggle for a lot of it, and especially after what we've seen in the pro sector, um, in regards to the reduction of, obviously workforce and layoffs and things like this across the board, that component from higher education is we have a very fine line to walk in that regard. If we're pitching esports curriculum, and part of the university is that you're subscribing to this style or this type of instruction, the hope would be that you can work in that space versus using the current, tested true degrees as is, giving them a program to learn or use what they're learning in the classroom outside of it with us, and then they're not siloed on their resume because it's still a degree in business or international business or marketing or retail chain management, and they can list those experiences whether they're a scholarship student, a volunteer, or an actual workforce.
So what I'm hearing, and just to translate that back to the viewers, because I heard a lot of vocab words of the day in that.
As you will with
You are,
Mr. Aguilar.
with both of you seasoned scholars, what you are saying is that you are not building new curriculum for esports, intentionally bringing that portion of the world to the classroom. You are taking existing coursework and existing curriculum that is so relevant to the application of esports that you could change the name and slap the esports on the title and it would still be the same, for lack of a better term. That's where you're going,
That's where I'm at.
choosing to
That's
start.
really where I'm at. Now, the future will be the creation of esports degree lines when the industry is strong enough to support the value of that nomenclature on a resume or a certificate. But it's not from an analytical perspective. I mean, yes, there are niches that will hire people with an esports degree, but just like in almost any new segment and kind of the reversion of a lot of segments, it's always the experience that sells you. The degrees and those give you the concepts and philosophy of things to try and attempt and understand the boundaries or scopes of what to do. But it's the application of experience that fortifies it into something that's employable. And so that is kind of the intention that I've had in saying that I don't want somebody at OU, at least not in the current renaissance of time across the sector, probably for my forecast at OU, 3 to 5 years for sure, to graduate from OU with a degree in esports and then can't find work. And then because of the stifling and the stigma of having an esports degree on a resume. But if they have a degree from the College of Business that has an emphasis in esports, then they can drop the emphasis and it's still a true canon esports business or a business degree. That's the future of actual esports curriculum at OU will come, but right now it doesn't make sense yet.
That makes sense. Thank you for that. Doc, I'm going to pivot to you real quick, because you are in process in these relationships and structure that you've built. Can you give a little more clarity to our viewers on how you decided where to start? How did you, in other words, how did you advise your institution? And were you or are you a central party in how the conversations of academic integration played out? Because that's an important
Chris,
distinction to make.
You
Are you the person in the room?
You're building this on assumptions of forethought and organization, which I would argue have never really been present. How here's the truth is, let me boil it down. We're a TV studio with an esports team, right? Our primary product is TV. When on the competitive side, tiers. We deliver a lot of. No, I'm just kidding. But that's really what we are, and we came to this place because we're on a Division I football campus. We knew that we'd get that one or two feel good, 2-minute stories on a couple of the news channels annually, but nobody would tell our story. We'd never make the front page of the university unless there was some crazy thing. We had to be our own media organization, so we started spinning up streaming. I didn't know anything about that. I became an obsessive student about that. That is the common thread in all the things in my life. Is if I get obsessive about it, I can decode it enough to make it look like it's supposed to look, I would think. And that's even on the academic side. My dissertation is the product of being obsessive about what are smart people do, what do smart people write about, that kind of stuff. So for us, building out I would say the most impactful professional or learning environment in our space was a product of we need to be able to tell a better story about what we're doing, or we're just going to get wiped off the map by robotics or drone racing or something else. We have to really manage that. And because of that, we've been obsessive students of it. We watch everything that everybody does. You know, there's Evo was last week. We're still dissecting what went on in those broadcasts that was unique and cool. And could we mimic some of that? And how did they do that trick? Was that all unreal, or did they do? Was it cooked video? What was it? Some of those kinds of things. So here's my semi answer to your question, which is we decided to move in this direction because it was self-serving for us, and it's self-serving on every campus, or self-preservation, more like. But it has grown into something that's been really valuable. Many of the folks in the chat, and you both know Alex Moore, my longtime assistant, was a player, has a business degree. We hired as an assistant, then became a coach. He got sniped by Riot. He's a broadcast engineer with Riot now. And if you'd said, well, that doesn't seem like a very good business degree, the truth is the degree doesn't matter as long as you have what the company or organization feels is critical, plus relevant experience, right? The degree, with exceptions of teaching and medical and those that actually produce a credential, the degrees simply help prepare you for experiences that no one can prepare you for. There you go.
Absolutely.
That's really
Thank you
confusing.
for
Yeah, there you go.
Not at all. Made complete sense. Mike, I'm going to toss this portion of the question to you because I think this will be very insightful for those who are being tasked or thinking about addressing these very questions as one begins to build an academic integration onto their campus. The question I want to ask you is, how are you a central party in how this plays out? And to that, are you even a member of the, as Hamilton puts it, are you in the room for these types of conversations, or are you simply delivering the
The room
letter
where it
and
happened.
letting others decide?
The room where it happened.
I would say that right around 2020 is when I started getting invited into the room formally. So that anytime any corner of the university was approached in an email or a consultation or a reach out with the word esports, it was forwarded to me from that point forward. So that didn't mean it didn't matter if it was a provost, a dean, a president, or a student. I was getting word of it, and I think that was the ultimate start of kind of the organizing the university outside of the silo that we had created in the program itself. And at that point, the strategy from the very beginning was to learn how the university talked. What was its dialect of English? If you've been in academia enough, we speak English, but the same way Americans versus British English is different too. But there's a different logic standard as well in regards to academia. So understanding those dialects and those different nuances to just link to communication was key. And it's defined oftentimes in handbooks, in policy documents, in updated press releases, and making sure that we were already speaking the university's languages before they came knocking. So I'm going to reference one specific partnership of showing how this is turning on its head now because of, one, patience, if you can afford that, but two, building the right relationships on campus. So our College of Business, often heralded as our most lucrative college on campus, is currently in the process of launching or relaunching and revitalizing the entire sports business division. And thereafter starting to really focus on developing more of the support infrastructure of potential hires and athletics directors at D1 universities. That's what they're going at. And so in that same concept, the narrative was the question that I was able to pose, and that conversation was, is esports a component of the knowledge of a future AD for the US? And the answer was unanimously yes. So if that's the case, then that means that opens the door for me to start that renovation process of curriculum that they're already developing, not necessarily having to make esports degrees, but creating the traditional sports business pipeline that they're already doing and having selective courses along the way that have esports sensitivities. So by having that, it allows the energy to come to us, and it's more like, hey, we need students to do research on this, or we know that you have the right demographic. You already have our students in it because 3,500 students in a community, every college is represented. So that creates GA pathways now organically. That creates doctoral candidate potentials in the future pretty organically as well. And then the natural recruitment of a big university now has the additional value of incentivizing why you come to OU, because a large portion of potential future students play games of some sort. So all of that kind of organically came to a head in 2020 with obviously pandemic impacts, but the patience and then making sure that we're speaking the right language and building the right bridges, even if it's just a small conversation to plant that seed. It takes a year or two sometimes, depending on how high the hierarchy you go. But once you're there, I don't ever have to worry about what another portion of campus is doing now. It's immediately bringing us into consultation because we built the program to be collaborative, not just saying, well, if you're not going to help me now, I'm going to turn my back on you because you're not a supporter. Instead, I use that as a means of saying, if anyone would tell me no along this journey, you're freeing me from what you care, and I'm going to go do it anyway. Because you just relinquished your right to have influence over that topic. There's your responsibility to own it, and you fumbled that. So I'm going to continue to develop it, prove its worth, and then that's exactly what's come back full head and saying, okay, now we see the value. We didn't realize how big the magnitude is. Let's start talking about strategic intention and development.
Amazing. I love that. I want to bring this question to the two of you. I'm going to start with Doc. But one of the benefits of having two Division One directors in the panel is I want to ask, what is the case for the two of you and for yourselves that may not be necessarily the case for other programs or directors? In other words, what advantages or what problems within this topic of academics do you get to experience that others may not? And we can perhaps give some clarity or give some additional um, insight into how this conversation has evolved over the many different types of universities that are pursuing this.
Doc, how many
I'm
students
going to
at
start with you,
Boise?
Doc.
In what respect? Oh, how many total students at the university? 27,000.
And OU's at 31.
Yeah.
Start with that angle.
So they're large. They're large. Here's what I would say. For us specifically, there's an immediate demotivation to adding an academic offering to what we do, because every credit issuing organization within a college silo gets compared to every other credit bearing institution. Esports is never going to draw 400 people a semester. It would be unmanageable, right? And bringing in the expertise, to be able to do stuff like that, no, people wouldn't get the practical time that they would want to be able to produce and participate at the level that they want, whether that be coaching or social media or any of that. It has to be small. So when you offer, if you're at a big institution and you start offering credits, you're compared to the user experience, user interface program is, which is in my same college. And if we have 22 students and they have 35 students, they're going to compare our budgets, right? And they shouldn't be compared. So we avoid that kind of comparison straight away. And I think that that's unique to a program that is built internally and launched internally, versus a lot of our Division One programs that are coming online, Syracuse and others, who have seen the work that we're doing and gone, we can kick their butts. Let's do that, right? And that's great. That's great that that they're building those out. But I would say unique to our organization, and I'll extend to Mr. Aguilar a little bit here too, that that because we're homegrown, we're going to face challenges that that bigger institutions at the Division One level that are adding a program after careful research and a populous, brochure about what they're going to build out, don't have.
Mike, I'd like to toss that back over to you. What is the case for you that may not be the case for others that sit within your particular vantage point?
So I think the biggest one, especially when we start talking outside of the sphere of D1, and yeah, there's plenty of big schools that aren't D1 that are D2, but that sheer number of student population automatically increases the potential of recruitment internally, which lowers the overhead of potential external recruitment and the resources needed to do those things. I'm long a proprietor, and I definitely have had feedback on this from plenty of peers. I don't care about national championships yet. I just don't. If my students do, I care just as much as they do, and I want to support them. But I care about the infrastructure more than not, because if I offer scholarships, then who is that head coach? I'm not going to give scholarships unless there's a compliance component to keep them accountable. It can't be me. I don't have enough time in the day for the program that we built that was designed to try and cater to every single gamer in a 31,000 student campus, including intramurals for the campus, including productions and collaborations during athletics, fan engagement, including the actual team developments. So when we talk about sliding that to the maximum and trying to take care of building a program that speaks to a lot of the same business processes that are already successful at OU, so we're not reinventing the wheel, we're just slapping a new piece of tire on it. And so in that same vein, that creates a plethora of resources and a big, massive pool of students that can execute. And then at that same point, that fundraising can go to, if I'm incentivizing a Valorant, team, and I'm paying, 0.25% or 25% or 50% of their tuition cost. Well, I would much rather take that money currently in 2023 and employ a cast of students that can put on events, because I can charge venue fees, which is a revenue generator, which I can do fan engagement, especially with us moving to the SEC. College football hopefully coming back as a video game next summer has a lot of strategic advantages to a specific, especially a Power Five university branding and our moves. So those things are unique to the bigger campuses that do have that athletics brand power. And if you build those relationships into that monster of a brand extension of the university, which is definitely unique to the bigger schools. But the other is the intention of building infrastructure and is supporting and impacting as many students as possible. Not to just say, hey, we're employing 30 students, but to say, no, you're going to own it. You're passionate about Smash. So Smash Weeklies on a Friday night, which happened organically as a student org for years. Well, now we're going to charge a venue fee because I just had 10 switches, full DLC, and a venue. You're going to charge a $5 venue fee. And that money is going purely into that student that's executing it, which now translates as resume generating as early as their freshman year in college. The same goes for production. If you're going to be putting on a production, and whether it's philanthropic, whether it's supporting another student organization, we've done live productions for the Asian American Student Association, other multicultural facilities, which is the same skill sets, and using it outside of that for interactive media and Twitch and YouTube Live and things like this. That's an opportunity to generate revenue, support student jobs, and build their portfolios and resumes. Our media and news side writes press releases for us with an OU logo. Imagine the second semester as a freshman writing a press release for a Power 5 Division I university. So like those things translate, and I can incentivize it by using that money more for the infrastructure development of supporting an entire ecosystem that looks very similar to an athletics Division I organization, where you have somebody that manages fan engagement, somebody who manages the production. For us, it's called Sooner Vision. For our extension of what equivalency would be a Learfield IMG, which manages marketing, sponsorships, external collaborations. From having the marketing students that are putting those things, we turn those into revenue generators. Then you support a workforce in a magnitude so that when you do finally come back full circle and say, I want to build teams that are going to win national championships, then I hire head coaches that have dedicated dorms, scholarship money, a salary, and no excuses to not be top 25 in at least 3 years. Otherwise, welcome to OU, and being part of a competitive energy, you're fired.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I want to move on real quick, and I'm going to pivot for a second. I would like to ask the two of you, because there are people that are watching and will watch
There are
that
people that are watching.
are looking to be that are looking to begin offering some form of academic inclusion or discussion on their campuses. So I'd like to, and I think some of this has already been stated piecemeal throughout, but I would like for both of you to give some advice or considerations that you would share that a director may not know or otherwise assume. What
All right, Doc, I'll
advice
go ahead.
do you have for
Go
others
ahead.
that are looking to get started in this particular direction?
I think as a starting point, you have to be very honest with yourself. This is still a first generational industry in the collegiate space. It's still very much first generational. And that's why none of us bear more than 50% resemblance from one university to the next. that compliance, that governance, that standard is getting closer and closer to having more similarity between us, but it's nowhere near, that 50% at best. Doc and my programs are an exact example of that. We are built completely different. A lot of intention similarly, the execution is very different. And would I say one is better than the other? Absolutely not, which is the second point I'll make. Whatever the strength is of the culture of the university and the climate and that region of the world that you represent, whatever speaks to you and becomes your potential pathway to get started is the right path. And so that's what's unique between every single one. So you can look at obviously references from panels like this. You can look at tapping on the shoulder of us directly or other directors that are well documented and well known and asking them for advice. But I guarantee you the one thing that you're going to walk away from that will leave you in a kind of a trance, and is that none of us did it the same. None of us started the same, at least still for the majority of us and across the sector. So use that as a means. For me, that caused a lot of imposter syndrome. Am I doing the right thing in the very beginning? Am I the right person for this? The confidence level, was all over the place. But what the reality is that you are afforded the opportunity and privilege of creating a pathway where a path didn't exist in the first place. And that is scary, daunting, and relentless. So there has to be that balance of that passion that gets you in the door, but you can't be pure passion. Passion will only sell the idea and concept from the very beginning. You need to wrap your head around the business process of a university to establish something that can be self-sustaining or revenue generating as fast as possible. Otherwise, you will have a university that says, well, they're doing esports. We want to get started. Let's throw some money in the bank. And they don't even know how to articulate what a good return on investment is, or a KPI, or whatever is of success. They think they know what it is, but they really don't. And it's up to you to help define that. But in that process, also make sure that you're managing it to a point that you have future trajectory past that next year, past that next 3, past that next 5. Definitely keep that 5-year to 10-year forward-thinking thought process at the core.
I love that, especially with the keep the forward thinking process at the core. Doc, for you, I'd like for you to chime in and give your advice and insight to those that may be looking to start on this journey in regards to how we look at this academically. Share some of your eternal wisdom, my friend.
Eternal wisdom. Are you sure you want to go down this way? Because there's lots of other great stuff you could do. I mean, Uber right now. Seriously, if you left Uber and then you Lyft, and it's there's a whole lot of things you could do. Uber Eats. You have to be passionate about this, and you have to be prepared for it to be really hard. It's not easy. It sucks. When the directors that I know get together who've been in this for a few years, I think of Mike, I think of Dan, I think of Cody, even Hummel, right? When we get together, there's a fair amount of commiseration because everybody is fighting hard on their campus, and that is the thing that I think, Mike, you and I discovered first. We met at a PAX and have been friends ever since. But we are not, unless it's together, uh, because we have the same foes and same objectives. We're trying to win the time, attention, and secure some finances from our local community, right? We're trying to survive on our campus, and it's esports is always a local problem. So my advice is surround yourself with people who are doing the things that you're doing, and just share. Just share. You create a document for somebody else, share it out. Mark Deppy is the one who really got me situated in the right way at the very beginning. He just handed over all of his documents that he created, for talking about how their organization was going to be built, how it was going to fund itself, where money was going to come from, and it was a complete open book. And I'm eternally grateful to Mark for that, because I think he set up our entire collegial group to think that way, right? Instead of being, well, no, we'll do what we do. You do what you do. No, he was like, here's what we did. Use it if you want, but if it doesn't have value. I really believe that we are dependent on each other for mutual success. And when we jumped in, Mike, you too. There were 30 total schools.
Yeah.
There were when we joined, there were 2 other Division I schools, Utah and Miami.
Right.
And they're over 180 today. including a bunch of Power Fives. And well, it depends on how it lands, group of five or sad group of five. We won't get into that. The group of four, who knows? But the idea that there are over 400 schools that offer some kind of financial support to their esports students now, that we will eclipse this year the 880 football programs at colleges, that there will be more officially recognized esports programs than football programs. That football's not going away, as we know, but it's magical to see. But that success is because we lean on each other. Sure, we get together, we want to beat the socks off each other, but we are first and foremost teammates in the battle against other people getting the time and attention that our students deserve. So work together. I mean, be ready for it to be hard, and for that reason, have other things in your life that you love to do. If you are fully dedicated to this for 12 hours a day, then your spouse will come to you and say, how long do you plan on living? As I've heard somebody had that conversation. Yeah, loose advice. Let's work together, help each other out, take care of yourself, and if you love this, dive in and make it yours. Yours doesn't have to look like either of ours or like anybody else's. Be the best thing your campus has ever seen, using the vocabulary of your campus. Mike talks that way because that's an important language. I'm here in Idaho. People still ride horses to school. We talk a little different, with not so much fancy mouth.
Yeah, I
Well, I'm in
appreciate
Oklahoma.
that candid advice. I just want to announce to those that are actively watching us right now on Twitch, we've got a couple minutes left here, and I want to encourage that if anyone has any questions for these two lovely gentlemen, please do drop them in the Twitch chat, and we can address them live on air. Just call what is it, 1-800-EsportsU, and drop your questions in the Twitch chat. But I want to, while the audience may or may not be dropping any questions that might serve as curveballs for the two of you, I want to ask, and starting with Mike, in regards specifically to the conversation surrounding academics within the scope of the program that you were building, what has been the easiest, and correspondingly, what has been the most difficult part of this journey so far? And do you anticipate, any further or future fights to be had?
The easiest component has been Doc and Mai's origination term, which is journalistic practicum. Selling the media components of this on that component of the university has been the easiest allies to build on campus. And so we have the second highest rated journalism school in the nation. So there's a lot of natural organic plugins with that, with our creative media production division, professional writing, and so forth. The second became business as we started to show the analytics, make sure that you're able to report on your communities, which Chris, you're strong on that as well. And understanding, obviously the report that you're a part of with Esports Foundry is critical for us to articulate our space more and more. Those analytics are a big portion of the equation. They can never be the entire equation because they always need context and narrative. But if that's our foundation, it is exponentially better now that exists than it did before that. And so those have been like the easy components. The harder components in the academic part are all those other degree alignments that we can see organically fit, and really kind of get them to buy in. And there's tons of opportunities. And now that I'm able to get into the rooms with deans and faculty much easier, these are becoming easier day by day and every time that we have these conversations. But the longest time, I could not let go of the idea of alignments with sociology, anthropology, social work, especially for those, mainly because I used to work at a juvenile justice facility for 3 years. And so I see the opportunity of social work and gaming for inner city kids and at-risk youth. And so there was a big tie-in as an opportunity of using it as a means to keep kids on the corrective path or the right path from the get-go. And so instead of just going to social work, what we ended up doing after it was fruitless, we went to a 501c3 extension of the Oklahoma City Police Force called the OKC Police Athletic League, which major metropolitans across the U.S. all have one. And they launched an esports branch in 2020, and we just got to work in supporting it instead of that. Then we came back to social work and said, hey, your social work students have to be looking at shadowing public servants. They have to be looking at supporting, DHS type programs or things that can be either preemptive or reactionary for kids in those demographics or in those risk factors. And we already have that program built. We already have the organization that is plugged in and is absolutely public sector. And so at that point, we removed their ability to tell us no because we had already done all their work for them. So that Trojan horsing of the university against itself has worked and has worked time and time again. But I have plenty of those ahead. College of Law is a big one for us, an opportunity. Again, all of those sciences, obviously the health sciences, as we have a big medical campus in OKC. When we start talking about everything basic in regards to things like this, so I think the medical stuff is going to be the hardest one for me to tackle. And then we're going to do the exact same thing with partnerships and working on creating analytics and telling the story and saying, we already produce all of the data that you need. Start funding the research in this. We've already done 50% of the equation. And on top of that, because we're so diverse in our student pool, I already have your students in the ranks. We just need you as the faculty to sign it off on it. So those kind of the easy components that have already happened and some of the challenges that are ahead on the academic front.
Thank you. Doc, we have a question in the Twitch chat that I want to direct your way, and I want to frame it within the academic conversation still. While public and private universities are very different, what similarities in esports stand out to you between both types of programs that you've seen? So kind of a throwback to one of our original conversations, but can you give a little bit of what are the short and sweet differences between public and private that you're noticing right now?
The differences or the similarities?
Let's go with the. They're asking for the similarities, so let's go with.
Okay, yeah, similarities. I think are just a better place. Honestly, we have a generation of academic leadership that recognizes the importance of serving students in new and different ways, and because of that, gaming and esports, which are two very different levels of looking at it, are vehicles for that. And I think that they together, when they're at their conventions and conferences, these things continue to come up. They see things. I'm sure they see, boxed solutions that people are trying to sell them for things like that. But they're inundated with it right now, and we all benefit from that increased attention, so that we can tell the story that we want to tell. I also know that it doesn't matter what type of institution you're at. There's never enough space to do all the things, even if there's a lot of open space, right? We all fight for space. The only way to capture that space is to use it, a little bit abuse it, make more noise than the neighbors are comfortable with, so that they want to get you in a place where you can do what you need to do and what the kids want to do without disrupting other people. Honestly, stretch the walls on the rooms that you're given, and champion the thing. The comments about we need a bigger space, we need a bigger space, we need this part of the building, or whatever, and that's how it happens. It takes years, and it takes a few complaints, but that's how we've been able to get where we're at, by getting kicked out of other places. Kind of been nice.
Thank you for that. We have one more question in the Twitch chat, and I will give an asterisk to this because I don't want to say that these are mandatory endorsements by any way, shape, or form, of course. But what conferences would you recommend getting involved in to learn more about the industry as it may pertain to academics? Are there any organizations, I should say, that are supportive of academic integration as a whole that you can lean on as a resource within this greater ecosystem at this time, or is there a gap to be filled there?
Here's what I'll say is that I haven't seen a ton in the collegiate academic peer-reviewed circle. I'm sure there are. I just have, in the last 6 years, almost 7 now, I've been in this time warp called esports. I haven't been doing those events, but I see a ton of killer stuff at the regional tech teacher level stuff, right? ISTE. What's the one in Florida? FETC, right?
Hmm.
NECC is one of the Northwest one. I can guarantee you that Texas probably says they've got the biggest and best one that's ever been. Um, I've always found those to be amazing hubs of creativity and lots of examples of application, right? Um, so if you, as a college director, can find a way to go and participate in one of those, you will learn a ton just by being around folks like that. Garden State is a great example of what Chris Aviles has done up there. Chris was actually a student of mine like 9 years ago in our master's program. He did what he did on his own. He's a superstar. But that kind of stuff um, is a great opportunity to just learn new ways of doing things from people who are doing it and testing it. Does that answer your question,
Mike,
or did I
anything you'd like
dodge it
to?
again?
Yes, absolutely. No, you're totally fine. Mike, would you like
Okay.
to add anything else?
I think Doc nailed it with ISTE, especially. I've seen so much good come out of those conferences and a lot of motivation. One thing that has humbled me and put me in my place unexpectedly, and I really appreciate it, is keeping your eyes on what K-12 does at the higher level. The K-12 industry in general, the feeder and pipeline of the organic nature into us, for whatever reason, feels 10 times more agile, and I love it because they're showing us what they can do when they just literally stick to the core of student excitement and wrapping STEM alignments and development pathways into it as a starting point, versus on the collegiate side, which often was founded based on a registered student organization or something that inspired further elevation. Whereas in K-12, it's predominantly and heavily staff and teacher led from the very beginning, meaning that it's wanting to have structure from day one versus, hey, I have a bunch of friends, we like playing Smash, let's create an registered student org. So I do draw a lot of inspiration from K-12 and just watching the different state conferences and things and what they're doing, how they operate, the decisions that they're making, and why. Um, in fact, they actually helped me kind of break my head about which titles we'd support in varsity, because they did a state championship in WWE in Oklahoma. And I absolutely laughed at it at first, saying, this is ridiculous. I love this, but it's ridiculous. But then I went to the state championship and they had rented out an entire boxing ring, put the consoles in the middle of that ring, and had their grand championships right there, which to me would have
Let's
been the
go.
coolest experience as a high school senior. And then at that point, I said, you know what? You're right. Why do I care about which titles we develop? If students want to develop it, at least at this current stage of our development at OU, well, what's stopping me from having varsity and Splatoon? Nothing. Are they hitting the measures? Are their grades good? Are their community? Are they doing productions? Are they doing fundraising? Are they marketing? How is that any different than Valorant?
Can we beat
Because if I'm
Boise State in that? If the answers are yes to those things, then you're in.
yeah, right, that's pretty much it. That's the doc. I beat Boise for a lifetime of insult. No, I'm just kidding. But like those types of things inspire
It hasn't been
and
that long
allow
yet.
no, but those things inspire me to be free flowing versus oftentimes the pressure of the closing walls per se of a university that's built on generations of compliance, legal processes that have ratified policies because of changes or some misconduct scenario or something as bad as injury and things like that. And so those things K-12 often still inspires me today and helps me remember what we're doing. One is the mission of an academic and an education, but also the fact that somebody sat us down on a couch at one point in our life, played Mario Kart with us, whooped us, and it inspired the desire to do better and do more inside of the game.
Thank you for that, both of you. I'm going to tee up your final question as we wrap up this panel. I want to ask you both, as we have gone on this journey a little bit, learning a little bit more about academic integration and a few of the things that we've discussed today. I'd like to ask both of you, do you have an end game in your heads right now for your respective institutions of what academics looks like at your school? And I'm going to ask you to do it in 60 seconds. I'm going to start
I
with
thought you were
you,
going to
Mr.
ask to
Haskell.
do it in a haiku, and I was going to say that'll take me a little longer. Let me say this. My end game is to have communications, to have sports management, to have um, one of our data analytics programs, and to have cybersecurity all create co-curricular activities that impact or that use our platform for that purpose. That is my hope. Those four seem to be on the horizon for me. That's a relative end game. But remember, I'm really old, Chris. So I'm only going to be doing this for like 13, 14 more years max.
Oh, did Chris freeze?
I think Chris was so
All right,
taken back by that. Mike, you
it's now
take it
the
away.
Moog and Doc. It's now the Moog and Doc show. All right, taking over.
Let's go.
I guess my 60-second elevator on this one is that I just want whatever I build to stand the test of time, meaning that whoever's in this seat, not just me, but whoever's in this seat after me, they get hit by a bus, walk away from the building, whatever, that this stands on its own 2 feet, which is true legacy, true power of building something that's generational in the world of dreaming of a world where 8-year-old version of me already had all these pipelines. The degree paths and
Yeah.
those types of things organically will come and go as we find new ways to leverage technology in and out of everyday operational things. I mean, look at the applications of augmented reality and virtual reality and medical fields and things like this and the blending of it, even AR and VR and athletics training and that stuff. So I would much rather be, I'll quote one of my favorite quotes with Bruce Lee, be like water. Water comes a cup, it becomes the cup. Water smashes, it can crash, it can be soft. The point is fluidity and allow gaming to be the point that there is no PC master race. It's consoles and PCs are equals. Card games and FPSs are equal. MOBA and gacha are equal. They all have a welcome place in this. And through that, we can inspire students to be the biggest and best versions of whatever they choose to become.
Unreal. The Bruce Lee finish. Chris, we're glad you recovered from that mini stroke that you had there. And no, but truly, to both of you, amazing friends, Chris, Mike, I love you. Grateful
It's
for
a ditto.
any time, even virtually, I get to spend with you.
I appreciate the two of you. And I will extend an invitation to all of those who are watching. We will have a power hour, so to speak, a happy hour at 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time after the conclusion of our upcoming panel, which will be discussing the CECC 23-24 competitive season. Very excited to join some of the very best and brightest from EsportsU to talk about what is upcoming for both the fall and the spring. So please hang around for that and join us in Discord to continue the conversation later on this evening. Thank you all so much. Doc, Mike, I appreciate both of you as always. Thank you for sharing your insight. I look forward to seeing both of you in the CECC throughout the fall and spring semesters. Good luck to both of you.
Salute.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Angela Bernhard Thomas. I'm the Chief Esports Officer at CSMG and EsportsU. We're very excited to see all of you today, and we appreciate you joining in to watch the summit. We've had 2 days now of really great thought leaders from the community come together and share ideas and insights with all of you. So we're very appreciative of them joining and bringing all of that to all of you. We are here today to talk a little bit about EsportsU and all the exciting things we've got planned for this season. And Kyler, I see that you're wearing your CECC sweatshirt there, repping. Very nice. And Tony Ann, you're repping too. Wow, I guess I should have done a little today, but yeah. All right, I note taken for that. But anyway, yeah. So before we get going, I'm going to let Kyler and Tony Ann introduce themselves, and then I'm going to kick off with just a little bit of a recap of CECC from Arlington this year.
Yeah, thanks,
Kyler?
Angela. So, yeah, just to say hello. So, for those of you who maybe don't know quite who we are behind the scenes, although I know I spoke on yesterday's panels, but my name is Kyle Tando. Online, I'm KTAD. So, in the Discord or wherever you need to find me, usually at KTAD or at KTAD with some kind of thing attached to it. But basically, I am the director of production and studio operations here at EsportsU. So as it pertains to all of our events and our broadcasts and productions and things like that. When we put on streams and all of that, usually I'm the one that's in charge of that behind the scenes. I may not be the person directly pushing the button every night or whenever you guys are watching like our weekly broadcast or things like that, but I'm the one that oversees all of that, make sure that everything runs smoothly, and that all of your students and everybody is having the best experience that they can with regards to the products we put out, whether that's broadcasts, events, or anything like that. So that's me. Nice to meet all of you, and I hope to, if you guys don't know me or if you guys haven't had a chance to talk to me, I hope that we get to connect so that we can, get to know everybody and you guys can get to know our team a little bit better.
And with that being said, hi everyone. I'm Tony Ann Convertino. I'm the esports operations manager here. And as everyone probably knows, or most of you know, I'm Neon Star. And I'm going to be your girl when you want to sign up for our events, need any information on us. And um, everyone will know my Discord. So find Neon Star and you'll find everything you need to know.
As they say, or as everyone jokes about,
Or
is
the
that
Neon
the
Star.
Neon Star?
Are you the Neon Star? Yes.
The
Today,
Neon Star.
the Neon Star. So, and I really just want to say a lot of the students out there and the coaches and directors know Kyler and know Tony Ann. And, just from my viewpoint, I always see them giving 150% to this community. And they work very hard to give you, a valuable experience that will stay with you throughout your life, really. And creating those connections that are very, very important and giving all the students and the teams opportunities to be on this platform, which is so amazing, college esports that we love so much. So we'll get started just a little bit. I want to get a little bit of numbers around CECC that happened in Arlington this year. It was the first weekend in May, and it was really done Texas style. Everything was very, very big there, over the top. We had over 14 conferences that participated in this event. So other conferences sent their championships of their season finals to participate in this event. If they didn't have their season's finals yet, they maybe assigned a school to come and represent their conference at this event. But ultimately, we had 64 of the best collegiate teams across 4 game titles present in Arlington and really getting to experience what we consider has been the largest live LAN event for college esports in the history of college esports. So it was pretty cool. when everyone arrived. Friday was a media day. We had something that's very traditional in college sports, which is a big bracket wall. So everyone came in and was welcome to the event in front of the bracket wall. I think it was pretty exciting for everyone to see their name and get to associate with, wow, this is something really special that we're involved in. And people that aren't very familiar with esports, they got to chance to make the connection by seeing the bracket wall. And I wish almost we had a little third viewer here that could pop up some of these things we're talking about. But yeah, so it was very, very cool. And we had over 441 college students there competing, and many, many coaches and directors. We ended up having over 3,400 attendees across the 2 days, and that was really exciting. Esports events, and especially college esports events, have always historically, not been able to fill out a big, space or arena or theater. And we were very, very happy to have that many people come out and show support for college teams, as well as support a middle school and high school activation that we had going on with our partner, Vanta, who ended up bringing their the Texas State Championships for middle and high schoolers across 11 different game titles. They ended up bringing that event and having that happen coinciding with our event. So it brought a lot of parents out to the event. We had panels that parents sat and watched that kind of explained how a young person can actually build a career and a life for themselves now in esports and gaming. And Kyler and Tony Ann and a lot of our team here at EsportsU are perfect examples of that. So we also held some open tournaments. We had an open smash tournament. We had 172 competitors in that. We had an Omega Striker event, which was a new game that was brought there by the publisher. We had 62 participants in that, gave big prize pools to both of those. And what that really did was extended, attendance out to additional communities across Texas. So that was a really cool way to get, people that weren't just interested in college esports to the event to see everything that was going on there. One of the coolest things we did is we had an IRL stream by Esfand, an influencer. He's part of OTK, and OTK is one of the biggest content creators currently on Twitch, their entire team there. And Esfand is one of the founders of OTK. He came out, went around the whole venue, talked to people, showed off all the activations booth, ran his own stream. I think at one point he had around 6,000 concurrent viewers watching him. He did a lot of really cool, funny things. He ordered a McDonald's dinner from the McDonald's app. McDonald's was, of course, our presenting sponsor. He also ended up putting on one of the McDonald's jerseys and walking around and showing off that. Smoothie King had made a really cool cup holder out of almost like a baby holder, and he ended up wearing that. There were just a lot of fun things that happened throughout the event. And we also had a co-stream with another very well-known influencer, Hungry Box. And so that was really cool. And he really got his community to engage with McDonald's and downloading the app. And we were able to provide a lot of value to our sponsors through these two influencer activations that happened there. And just quickly, I'll mention the four main sponsors we had were McDonald's, Smoothie King, PC Game Pass, and Apple Music. With PC Game Pass, we ended up doing a complete content series around women in partnership with Padia. And we ended up sending actually 3 all-female teams to participate in CECC and do their own exhibition match. One of the teams was from Canada. So really got into this year telling the stories behind college esports. And, the stage was beautiful, the ambiance was beautiful. Uh, the production teams did some amazing work between our own EsportsU studio and our production partner, Esports Foundry. And then, of course, working very closely with the production team at Esports Stadium Arlington. The production was just bar none, and I think really set a standard of expectations of now what the college esports wants and needs to deliver, and what brands need to have an opportunity to be part of. So we're very happy and proud of all of that. We had lots of organic social engagement. We had a lot of press coverage. Over 50 media outlets picked this up. Our great DKC, for our media partner, did an amazing job there. We had a beautiful jersey ceremony on Friday night, where every athlete that came to participate and compete received a fully branded McDonald's commemorative jersey. It's always one of the highlights of our events that students really look forward to receiving those commemorative jerseys that we've been making. We go to other events now and see students wearing the commemorative jerseys. So we appreciate the sponsors for making that happen. And one of the biggest highlights of Friday night was the big reveal and surprise of actually having Ronald McDonald present at the event. And when we went to plan this activation, we weren't really sure, like, what will everybody think of it when Ronald McDonald? We kept the whole thing a secret, brought him in the back door. What will everyone think of it when Ronald McDonald comes out? And I just have to tell you, it was the post that went viral, and a lot of students were recording it, and they were shouting, and then it was if a big movie star had come on stage. So really, really exciting, and I think very memorable for a lot of the students that were there. Real quick, we gave PC giveaways, 2 PC giveaways. We had amazing booths that were active and programmed throughout the entire weekend. We also did the Collegiate Esports Awards, which was part of our ceremony this year. We kind of wrapped it in as content that was in between tournaments, but it ended up being sort of a highlight of the night, and really, really beautiful presentation and acknowledging a lot of the big stakeholders in the industry. So last but not least, McDonald's also sponsored an HBCU school, Howard University, to be able to come and compete at the event. And we want to extend and grow that next year. So in short, we're really appreciative of everybody that is able to come out and compete at the events, the coaches and directors that support us, the amazing broadcast team that we have that puts all of this content together, that literally is a year in the planning. We are planning now for next year. We have a good idea of what it's going to look like. We're going to be ready to make some big announcements here very, very soon. But that is a quick glance at what happened at CECC in Arlington this year. And I think Kyler is going to jump in here, Kyler and Tony in now, and sort of share some season guidelines that we've created for the community, and also share some exciting stuff that we're going to do this year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that
Thank you,
too much?
Angela. No, that was perfect. Thank you. I think for us it's really something awesome, and the amount of hours it takes, I hope that the community understands that events like that, it takes a lot of time for us to really put that together, and in the weeks leading up to it, I don't know if I speak for everyone, but I know I speak for a big chunk of the team. The week leading into it and the week before we flew down to Texas, there was a lot of near sleepless nights, just trying to make sure, do we get the assets in? Do we have everybody sorted right? Are we sure that all the teams are accommodated correctly? Did we figure out the schedule so that none of the teams needs to compromise whether or not they get to do the things they want to do or whether they have to come to our event. So we really, I those are things that I know maybe doesn't get the attention, but we want you guys to know that we think about that and we think about your schools and the programs in that way, that those are, we always want to make sure that for whether you're a student or if you're a director or a coach, for your students, we put a lot of this time and effort into it, and we're always open to feedback. We're always open to hearing, uh, things that maybe we could do better, or things that maybe we could do differently, but that ultimately we do put a lot of time and effort into these things. And with that said, I think that's where we can come in now and say that we have some exciting new things and exciting updates for the season up ahead. Um, the first one that I think I want to touch on, because I think this has been one of the questions that a lot of people, or has been on the minds of some people, is that are we expanding, right? Are there more teams? Are there less teams? What's the teams numbers going to be looking like next year? And so one of the things that we have looked into and we have put into our guidelines, and that you'll be able to see later, is that we are now going to a 20-team format. And what does that mean, right? So I know that's a weird number for bracketology and all of that, but basically, if you are one of our regional qualifying winners, meaning you win either in the north, south, east, or west, right? You now go into what we are deeming as Pool 1, and then the rest of the bids, so all the conference bids, the LCQ, or the other, what we've deemed as like the special interest or the special qualifier type of bids, those are going to be into what we call the Pool 2. And we will obviously then release the schedule later on as we get closer to the event of how that's going to work out. But basically, if you're a Pool 1 seed, you do get a slight advantage. You do get a slight, almost like a bye, right? Before we move into the main sort of competition where you get knocked out. The cool thing about that is that you might get the chance to play up against other Pool 1s. So, thinking about it, if you're a top school in your region, you get to play against other top schools from other regions as a way to maybe determine your seeding and just kind of have those no pressure grudge matches. And then for, if you are a Pool 2 seed or everybody else, it is still that, that fight, that competition to see who is the best at the event and the best in the country, right? So things like that. Or actually, I shouldn't say country, but potentially the continent, as we have some of the other things coming up. That's the first thing that we wanted to talk to you guys about, to tell you that we have heard some of the feedback on that. But with that, I'm going to turn it over now to Tony Ann, because we also now have an update to. Oh, I guess it's not. Well, yeah, there is an update to the regions and the maps. So, Tony Ann.
So we would like to introduce Canada being formally involved in our regions. We have a regional map that we'll be posting on socials and Discord for everyone to see where they will fall in what region. For example, we have British Columbia in our west and Ontario in our east. We will be sending that out, so just look out for a post from us. And I guess with that being said, we could dive into our regions and what our regions will look like this season. So first things first, our East region will be staying in the fall. Dates are going to be later determined, but very soon. With that being said, the fall is now going to be including our Midwest. Our Midwest is transferring over from the spring into the fall. With that also being said, South is going to be split. So our South Open qualifier is going to be in the fall semester, and then the regional. So if you qualify, the regional is now going to be in our spring semester season. Just a little heads up for the South, so you are aware. I know rosters could change and everything like that, but we will have that under control with our 50% rule, as we always had in place. And then last but not least, West is also staying in the spring semester as well. So our four regions, again, East and Midwest, are in the fall, with the South, South Open qualifier in the fall. And then in the spring, we are going to have South Regional, and with the West and just with the West. So that is our regions for this year.
Yeah, thanks, Tony.
Mhm.
So with that as well, then the next thing that I think we want to talk about is that this year we are going to also officialize or officially recognize. I know we did it last year as kind of a message us and you get the clearance and message us and talk to us, but we did want to also extend an official production whitelist. So for schools that compete in our events or schools that potentially want to cover some of the matches, knowing that we won't always be able to stream every game. So if it is your institution, all right, your team is playing, you can definitely now message us and then get on to what we are putting as the public production whitelist. Basically, for those of you familiar and for those of you on the broadcasting end, it's just the blanket green light to say, yes, we trust your institution, we trust that you guys are competitive and you are integrous in your competition, so that we know that you guys aren't going to use the access to full spectator, or right, the access to spectator in a malicious way. You guys aren't going to be relaying information back to your players, et cetera, right? All the things that comes with general production whitelist, so that if you are an institution or if you are a program that has a streaming and broadcasting team that wants to still cover matches, even if knowing that we can't, we won't be covering all of them, you can definitely get on the list and you can get on the the whitelist so that you can stream it. The only thing, as always, is our disclaimer that, hey, if we, as EsportsU covering the CECC, we want to cover a match, or if rather as we get towards the back end of the bracket and those are the only matches we can cover, that we also then retain the right to say we are going to stream it, we are going to be the primary one streaming it. I'm not going to make any restriction on your school to stop, but if there are limited slots in the spectator room, right, so looking at like Rocket League, looking at potentially not so much Valorant, but right, potentially Overwatch, or potentially, obviously there are a lot more slots, so I don't think we'll run out. But should those things come up, then that is where we will say, hey, we are going to take the main, the main broadcast, and we need these spots for whatever reasons we need them for, whether that's talent or our production team, right? So just keeping that in mind. But the production whitelist is something that we are officially putting into place this year as well, so that teams can know about it. Moving on from there, though, the next fun thing that I think we get to talk about, and just so you guys know, this has been something that has taken a lot of time, a lot of effort. We've put a lot of thought into this. There's been a lot of projections and uh, I want to say exercises that me and my team have personally had to go through to make sure that we could announce this and we get to talk about this. But this year we are excited to announce our version of what we are calling what you would traditionally call a point system. So in this year we are announcing the Commissioner's Cup. There may be a sponsor attached to this down the road, and there likely will be a sponsor attached to it. So don't necessarily think of it that this is the name that it's always going to be called. But for right now, we are announcing the Commissioner's Cup, and this is going to be our point system. So what do I mean when I say our point system? So moving into the academic year, our Commissioner's Cup will encompass our regional events, the last chance qualifier, and critically, conferences with bids into the CECC, and then performance at the finals. So there are a bunch of different events where you as a team and as an institution can accrue points, and these points are going to then be added up for your school or institution, meaning that you as the Valorant team, you can contribute to the overall standing of your school, right? And the Valorant team, the Overwatch team, the Smash, and the Rocket League team, all four of you guys now are all pulling in the same direction. You each, yes, compete in your title, but you guys now, this is the school versus school competitions, right? So I do want to bring this up that there is, and yes, thank you production for bringing it up. But these at the bottom there is the points table. Now there is some things to note here that I am going to call out that are special rules, right, or the notes that we're putting here. So, and I'll explain this to you guys. So, as it stands, you can own your team for any specific game, or so rather, your school for any specific game can only earn points from your highest placement at either a regional qualifier, so that's an open qualifier, a regional qualifier, or or the last chance qualifier. Meaning, if you as a school win, let's call it Overwatch for a region, then you have maxed out on points for Overwatch. You cannot get any more points for Overwatch because you are now getting the maximum amount, right? If you as a school, miss the boat and you didn't do well in your regional, good news is you can still try to get in the LCQ and try to place higher at the LCQ, in which case then you can get more points. But as I think you guys see here, the open qualifier, that's just for some points, just to say, hey, it gives you something to fight for on the OQ. You're not just fighting for your spot at the regional, you are fighting for some points at the open qualifier. But really, the majority of the other points are going to come from your performance either at a regional qualifier or at the last chance qualifier. Worth noting that you can also earn points from conference championships. So we are going to look at this as if you are, for example, playing in the ECAC and you win the championship for their premier divisions. So not going to extend this all the way down because I know that many conferences have multiple tiers. So these are going to be for their, the top tier of division will play or whatever that case is for the conference. Then you can also accrue points for winning in that conference. So for schools that are able to play in multiple conferences, yes, there is a potential advantage here, but also it does give some pride and some association for those regional conferences that do play with us, but that ultimately it's not something that's going to make or break your championship. That is where you want to look at it, and I think this is the most critical point. Performance at finals is what will matter here. So if you are the school, right, you want to do your best. Performance at the end of the event, the final event, that's what matters most. That's what's going to get you the most points. So it means, on the weekend of, if you are, on the Smash team and you're seeing your Valorant team up there, you want to be there cheering, you want to be there supporting, because that could make the difference between you as a school winning out and taking the cup for yourself, or whether you guys come in second. And there will be, we are looking to put some good pool behind this and some really great, attention and influence around it. But just kind of keeping that in mind, guys, that this is the school versus school competition now, not just game by game. You guys are all going to be rooting for your fellow classmates and just seeing how you as a program can do. So for coaches and directors, I hope this also then gives you a little bit of idea that, hey, if you're not fielding a team in one of our four main games, might be worth thinking about, especially if you're in a region where, hey, there isn't maybe as much competition in that title right now. Getting yourself to finals could be a big help and a big way to get your points. But I think we know who we're talking to when it comes to who wants to fight at the top of the table. You guys know who you are. Good luck, and we wish you the best of luck as the season progresses.
I'll just add there, Kyler, that we are in talk with a big sponsor that will come forth, and we just couldn't get it finalized by today to talk about that openly. But it's very exciting. And Tony Ann, I also wanted to add on yours. Can we give the date for the East Regional, which and just for everyone out there, our goal is for us to try to hold as many live events as we can throughout the year. Our sponsorship team works very hard to go out and to try to find sponsors for regional events because we want to be able to offer the LAN experience to as many students as we can. So we work to make every regional that we have a live event if we can. The first one planned for this year is the East Regional. So can you just tell them the date, Tony Ann, and where that's
Yep.
going to be held?
So if you qualify through our East Open qualifier, you will be qualified at our East Regional LAN October 28, 29 in Helix Arena in Boston. So that is one of the regions you could start planning for. But first off, you got to qualify. But yeah, so October 28, 29 is our East Regional at Helix Arena in Boston.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, actually, and then one more thing I forgot to add because we did make it an official, but I know that this is gonna be a question or to answer a question I think that came up in the postseason. We did want to also let you guys know that we are officially in our guidelines putting in the cap that for per institution per game, that we're allowing up to 2 maximum represented teams at the finals. So for those of you that were wondering about that, this is now in our guidelines as written that it is going to be up to 2. They have to qualify from 2 different qualification methods, right? So obviously you can't just take a finals and then you get 2 bids. That's not how it works, right? So you have a team would have to win a regional and then win a partner conference or win multiple partner conferences with different rosters. So always keep that in mind, that you can't just win with one roster and then change out you can't just keep qualifying with the same 5 guys for Valorant and then just stick in your B team whenever. There needs to be 0 roster overlap for the qualification of the multiple teams. So just letting you guys know that now ahead of the season, as that is something that we have heard and we have now incorporated into our guidelines.
Great, wonderful. So, Tony Ann, where will the season guidelines live? Where will they be able to get access
Yep.
to this?
So the season guidelines will be posted in our Discord and as well as our website, where all the other forums are when you need to register for our event. So everything is going to be in one location on the website, but as well as Discord.
Okay, that's great. Anything else, Kyler, or do you feel like that's a pretty good overview? What about our student eligibility? What are our sort of guidelines around that for this year?
Yep, absolutely. So with that, we are putting in that the eligibility for students is that we want to make sure that you are deemed a full-time student at your institution. So generally, we know that that's about 12 credits a semester. If your institution deems it as different, then we will follow that. If that is what your school says, yep, you are a full-time student, then we will follow that to say, okay, your school recognizes that you are a full-time student. But that will be our student eligibility criteria. And then, as Tony Ann previously alluded to, roster eligibility means that yes, you can change people out between qualifying and the final event, but that you must maintain at least 50% or more of the roster in order to maintain and keep your bid. So that's the 2 there. And then lastly, as a team, for you to even participate in the CECC, we have the idea or the criteria being that either you are a varsity team, a club team which has proof of registration and verification that the club is organized on campus, or if you are a non-club or community team, right, which is just students who are on the campus and whatever the case might be, all we will then require from you is written authorization from the school, from one of the programs, right, whether that's the club or the varsity program, that you have their authorization to use the institution's intellectual property. So i.e., you are allowed to represent the school with their logo and name. Otherwise, if you do not have that and you're not under the other 2 categories, then you will be unable to participate in the CECC as a team. So if anybody has any questions on that, definitely let us know. But generally, we feel that you should be covered, whether you are a varsity team, a club team that's a recognized club, or a non-club and a community team, but that you have the proper authorization to say, yes, we are representing our school at this event.
And Kyler,
Great.
we had a
Okay.
quick question in chat. If you it said clarification, what about schools that accept rosters have part-time students on their teams? Would CECC accept that?
Right now, we are looking at the kind of just the what is fair across the board, and that a lot of our teams and a lot of the students participating are under the full-time status. That is generally the way that we are looking at it for this upcoming season, that we want to make sure that everybody is playing under the same kind of rules and same kind of course load and course work, with the exception being that we recognize that the service academies, the military service academies, right, they have a little bit more intense of a day-to-day course load and a day-to-day life. That's why we traditionally did have a separate qualifier for them. But for everyone else in the general player base, we do want to at least try to make sure that everybody is under the same amount of coursework, right, or at least under the same amount of credits, or the same minimum amount of credits, I should say, just so that then it's not somebody that's only taking one class and they play games the rest of their time, or they do other things, right? So just wanted to verify that so long as you are a full, and I see the other question coming in, we are not dictating what the difference between a full-time online or in person is, so long as the institution says that they are verified as a full-time student and that they're taking the minimum amount of credits required. To us, some of us remote work from home and things like that, so it's not, that is where we're not putting any stipulations or any ruling against online versus in person.
Mhm. Also, I can add to that, Kyler, these things we take very, very seriously. We don't just glance over these. We discuss them. We get feedback from the community and leaders throughout the industry. But this year, we will also be organizing a more formal competitive committee that will be reviewing all of these things on a continuous basis. So we're also going to be announcing that and opening that up for nominations for the competitive committee and invitations to be on the competitive committee. So that's one other thing that we're going to be adding this year that's different. All of this is in the guidelines, which we will post on social and inside our Discord. And just, is there anything else you guys want to touch on? I just want to kind of add a couple things before we wrap it up here. Is that okay?
Yeah, no, I didn't have anything else for me. I hope you guys are just as excited as we are for the upcoming season. We've spent a lot of time, like Angela just said, we spent a lot of time and thought process and a lot of discussion and debate about, a lot of these things in the guidelines, and we hope that it brings you guys the same amount of excitement as it does us, because I think we're in for a very competitive and a very exciting season, and that's what I would have to say.
And
And I
also,
like to just add. Oh, sorry.
go ahead, Nan. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to add about the regions again, since it was hopping up in chat. There were some state changes. So if you were competing in our Midwest or South as of last year, you might be in another region. I just want everyone to be aware of that and just make sure you do see the regional map. Again, it will be posted when registration is open, what dates or what states are included. But I like to just add that there were some state changes for our regions.
Yeah, specifically, if you want to know it, Virginia, West Virginia, and Kentucky, you guys are now in the South, as we heard the feedback on it, and we moved you guys
Mm-hmm.
to your correct region.
Mm-hmm. And that's a really good point. So if you get the guidelines and you have any questions or comments, everything that we create in general is in response to the community voice. So if you have some questions or thoughts around making things better, we're always open to that. How do we make things better for the community? That is our primary goal, and make this experience memorable and valuable for each and every one of you. So, just before we go, I just wanted to touch on CECC is not the only thing we do at EsportsU. We actually do quite a few other things in the space, and I'll just touch on it real quickly. We have a program called the ACE program, Accelerating College Esports, for any institution that wants to stand up a club sport or put together a varsity esports team. We can help you with all of that. If you want to build a facility on campus or want to upgrade the equipment in your facility, we offer that service as well. It really is a full 360-degree service solution, a one-stop shop for esports programs and facilities on campus. And the ACE program is in partnership with our very great strategic partner, Esports Foundry. So we work hand in hand very closely with them on all of those activities. We also have an in-house creative service team called AFK Studios, where we work with influencers and creators and brands that want to reach casual gamers on campus. So not everything we do is just about esports. We also are a conduit for many brands to reach, large numbers of gamers on campus. So we have that. And of course, our studio, which Kyler runs, we also do white label service work, production work from the studio. We can come to your school if you want to organize a regional event and want us to come and help you run an event. We can do that. So live events, virtual events. We are going to be announcing we're also doing conference operations for multiple conferences this year coming up, and also running broadcasts for multiple conferences. And so if you ever get the chance to tune in to our EsportsU Twitch channel, last year we created about 1,000 hours of the best, esports college matches curated every day during fall season and spring season. So we've got a lot going on, and we feel like that we're really in touch with the community and the industry stakeholders in college esports. And so please always consider us your go-to team if you need anything, and your support group, and as well just your friends, because we believe in elevating college esports athletes, and that is our primary goal across every endeavor that we undertake here. So thank you all for joining in, and we look forward to seeing you. I think is there a Discord open session now coming up after this, Kyler?
Yeah, so for those of you that want to just come and hang out with us or hang out with some of us, we will be in the EsportsU Discord, right? So that's discord.gg/esportsu. And then, you can jump in there and have a chat with us if any of you want to ask us any further questions or have, any discussions with us. Uh, some of us will be available for that. So excited to see any of you there. And yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.